Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back. And we're back with another ranked and reviewed video. And this is a very special one because I am not doing metal music today. I'm doing one of the biggest, most relevant pop stars right now, just to kind of prove that, I'm not just stuck in that genre. But most importantly, I got a very beautiful and very, very lucky guest here today. This is my wife, Catherine. I've been listening to Taylor Swift with her since the beginning of our relationship about 6 years ago, and this is just a really big artist that has been a major part of our relationship with regard to what we listen to. And you've been listening to her since like the beginning, right?
Yeah, probably around 2007, 2008, so right after her first album.
Yeah, frankly, I heard a couple singles here and there between her first album and then 1989 when we met. And again, since we started dating and then eventually getting married, every album she's put out since then, which there's been 4.
Pretty much her entire pop era.
Yeah, the second half. She's got 8 albums. We have all of them right here. I'm going to rank and review them, but her whole back half is what's really been part of it, but it doesn't mean we can't enjoy the old stuff too. So that's why, it's also nice to get another perspective because I tend to look at things very analytically, but even though there's a few albums here that have sentimental value for me, which I always say is an X factor, I want to hear her perspective, and I'm sure you guys would appreciate that too, right?
Well, and I feel like we have different backgrounds. So, like, you are an instrumentalist by design, you are a guitar player, you're a vocalist too, but what you did first was instrumental.
Yep.
And I am a vocalist and a songwriter, so I feel like I bring a different knowledge to songs than you do.
Yes, and funny enough, you guys will probably notice different compared to my other videos. What we're going to do is, since this is a joint effort, is we're going to just go through her 8 albums from 2006 all the way up until this year, 2020, the best year ever, and just we're gonna talk about our thoughts and favorite songs on every album and see if there's any sentimental value there. And then at the end of the video, which I'll put in the timestamps, if you just want to skip all that good stuff and check out the ranking there, we're going to share our rankings at the very end, but we're going to go through every album one by one and get started. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
I'm ready to party.
All right. So at the very top, we have Taylor Swift, her self-titled album. I would like it if you could start with this one because you know more about this one than I do.
Okay, so what are we talking about exactly?
What's your background on this one, or what is it about this album that really sticks out to you, or do you have any sentimental value to this one?
Okay, so I, like every other white girl in the mid-2000s that lived in a honky-tonk town, because I lived in Coos Bay, Oregon, really got into Taylor Swift's country. I was a big fan, of course, of the moody teenage angst that comes with this album, and of course identified with every single song. That high school boy that just does not pay attention to you, all the angst right here. So I feel like for being introduced to her, it was during a really poignant time where I really identified with her music. Yeah.
For me, this was the last album I ever heard from her, and this was actually, like I said, we own all 8 albums. This was the last one that I bought just a few weeks ago, so...
But we own it now.
Yes, and my only experience with this one was back when I was in high school, and I'm only a year older than her. So for me, it was probably like sophomore going into junior year. That's 2006. I remember hearing Teardrops on my guitar and thinking, just meh. But other than that, I didn't know any other songs. But personally, there are a few songs on here that really stuck out to me, and I'm really impressed at her first release. This is actually a really great first release, especially for a 16-year-old. She's got a lot of natural talent, and that's why I can appreciate genres outside of metal. She's an excellent songwriter. The songs that stuck out for me the most were "Cold as You." That's track 5, and then of course the Avril Lavigne-esque like rock anthem "Should Have Said No." Those were like ones that I really liked, but. I thought the single Teardrops on My Guitar actually aged pretty well. And the very last song, if we're not talking about bonus tracks, Perfectly Good Heart, I actually thought that was a really good closing track. Which songs did you like the most or didn't like?
I don't think it's funny that you said something aged well. I think as far as all of these go, Picture to Burn did not age well. Like, it was super cool when we were like, screw my ex-boyfriend and stuff, but it's actually kind of immature. Not a big fan, but I think Tim McGraw, I literally scored it a perfect 10. I think that was probably the best debut she could have come out with.
Yeah.
I loved the story it told, and fun fact, I actually we had to write a poem my sophomore year that lined up that was inspired by a song, and I literally wrote a poem that was inspired by Tim McGraw.
Oh, okay.
So, fun story. I also really love Cold as You, and I don't know, there's always the fun upbeat ones. She has great upbeat ones on here, but her ballads are really what carry it, and I think Tied Together with a Smile, while it can be a little, I'm not going to say preachy, but, somewhere along those lines, I think, as a teenage girl who's gone through either an eating disorder or just struggling to fit in and with self-identity, Tied Together with a Smile really hits you in a certain place.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't have any teenage girl feels, but I can agree with you that even though I didn't really remember hearing, because when you hear albums you never heard before, you might think, oh, I've actually heard that song on the radio. Picture to Burn, because I never listened to country stations growing up, that song was new to me, but I didn't even need to make a comment about how it aged because I just didn't think it was one of the better songs. I thought it was one of the worst songs, but that's her first album, and it's really great for what it is. And again, a big thing I talk about with rankings is how good is this relative to the place and time
that you were in,
and how early on in their career it was. And based on where she was at 16, this is a really great album. So that's self-titled Taylor Swift with the curly hair.
I mean, it's amazing that a 16-year-old can produce that.
Yeah.
A completely unknown, or relatively unknown at the time.
Definitely. Let me check something. I keep feeling like I'm out of the frame, but I'm not.
I know, you keep getting closer, I'm like, you're fine.
Okay. All right. Next album, we have 2008's Fearless.
Really put her on the map.
Yeah, so, look, I'll just say my piece real quick because, once again, no sentimental value, no real anything. The first half of her catalog was the last part that I got into. I'll just say what my favorite songs are, and then I'm sure you got a lot more personal stories or sentimental value to share with this. There's a song, track 5, called White Horse. I think that one's a really great song. Tell Me Why. The Way I Loved You is probably the highest rated track I did. And then, once again, closing strong, the last track, Change. And then, of course, the singles on here, which is what I remember hearing back in the day, You Belong With Me, Love Story. I think those are solid singles. I just don't think they're her best, but they're by no means like her weakest.
I think Love Story is iconic. You can't have Taylor Swift without Love Story.
Yeah.
So for me, of course, again, white girl in the country, who was a junior in high school when this came out. So it obviously was very impactful. Those were actually probably two of my favorite years in high school. My first two were but my junior and senior years, which were the 2 years this was really playing on the airwaves, were probably my favorite in high school. And this was definitely a soundtrack to all those good times and bad times. So I think this got the highest rating in terms of like the X factor for me because it's so sentimental. And because I also find the value in what it did to turn her into an artist that people knew. Like, of course, people knew Teardrops on My Guitar, but this is where she started crossing over into pop radio waves. So I think that's super important. I mean, to the point where literally the Love Story challenge on TikTok is a thing right now in the year 2020. So obviously it has cultural impact. With that said, I ranked Love Story as probably one of the highest I've ranked any of her songs because it is so iconic. Who doesn't dig the fairy tale story that she tells there? And it's just a good fun one to dance to. I also am a big fan of White Horse. I think that is probably one of her better ballads. I think it's beautiful. I also really love Breathe with Colby Calais. I'm not, and you'll hear this throughout our ranking, I am not the biggest fan of Taylor Swift collaborations. I think that's something she's the weakest at. But this is one of my favorites. I think it's beautiful. I hate, and I'm just going to say this, I hate the song The Way I Loved You, and it's not because it's a bad song. Like, I know you like it because it's got a little bit of edge to it, and it's a little bit rocky. I hate it because of the lyrics. It's an abusive relationship that she's romanticizing over, you know, a healthy, stable relationship, and at 16 you're like, yeah, I want a passionate love, but now I'm like, girl, get help. So those are my highlights here. Oh, I also like Forever and Always because who doesn't like a good Joe Jonas diss track?
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah, I personally don't know a whole lot about that, but she's been kind of teaching me along the way. Some of it's
I
pretty
know way
funny.
too much.
All right, next up we have her 2010 release, Speak Now, which to me, being kind of just like a decent level fan, I'm not a complete Swiftie, but I'm also not a complete noob. My take is this probably isn't one of her bigger or more commercially successful albums. I thought it was pretty dang consistent. It opens pretty well with Mine. Don't have a whole lot of sentimentality to this one, but the song Haunted's got good memories, and to me that's the best track on the album, along with Enchanted and track 10's Better Than Revenge, which is that another one that's
another one I just hate.
Yeah.
I just hate
This is why these are fun, because it's, there's certain parts of music that are subjective, even though you could objectively be any person and look at lyrics and go, yeah, those are a certain thing. But I think Speak Now is a pretty solid album. There hasn't been a sophomore or junior slump yet, but just like with Fearless, probably I'm sure you have more to say about this one.
Mm-hmm. So another one that ranked really high in the sentimental train, pretty much this, Fearless in 1989, but we'll get to that, because I was starting college when this came out, and I was going through a really tragic breakup with my boyfriend of 2.5 years. So, I mean, anything Taylor Swift during a breakup is pretty much prime. But I also, having been a Taylor Swift fan from the beginning, I really admired her maturity in this album. You could tell that she was becoming an adult in her songwriting, and I thought that was important. I love I love pretty much everything, but I too am a huge fan of Haunted. I know that's so unlike any of the rest of pretty much the songs on here and anything she'd done previously, because she was still pretty heavily country. But I love Haunted. I think it's amazing.
It's got an Evanescence feel to it.
It does. Like, all you need is a throatier voice, and honestly, I can't wait to hear her re-record that.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty rad. I also really like Sparks Fly, I think, in terms of some of her more, like, upbeat songs. I just think that one's awesome. Back to December, of course, is a really strong ballad. Dear John's never been my favorite, but at the same time, I think its lyrics are incredible and really impactful. I mean, shout out to John Mayer. And yeah, I think the weakest track on here for me, well, other than Better Than Revenge, because I hate that song. Here's my opinion on that song. I feel like it's a Paramore ripoff, number one. And I feel like that wasn't really a genre Taylor Swift should have been really dwelling in at the time. But also, I think it's pretty immature. I mean, granted, she's 20 years old, but I don't think you needed that kind of level of woman shaming. It was kind of gross.
Yeah.
I also think Innocent is not only kind of a boring track, but also condescending. Listen, I will stand by and say, on the record, Kanye was wrong. Taylor Swift forever. But that didn't need... She's done way better Kanye diss tracks than I Believe in You. So, that's my opinion on those. But otherwise, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I'd say out of all three albums so far, Speak Now have the strongest, opening. First couple tracks kind of going pretty well. Mm-hmm. All right, now for our favorite album. Red, which came out...
I was like, that's not our favorite album.
Which came out in 2012. So this is actually one of my earlier memories of that. I had a couple of coworker friends that kept singing We're Never Getting Back Together, and they kept ruining it with their parody lyrics, and they basically just ruined that song for me. There's just some people that should not sing out loud and that confidently. But for me, Red doesn't really have any sentimental value. I know this is a massive album for her and probably a lot of people's favorite album. For me, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's really inconsistent, but there are some great tracks. My favorite ones are The Lucky, Treasonous, Treacherous. Look, I Knew You Were Trouble is one of her best singles ever. To this day, it's still pretty dang catchy. And then All Too Well. It's a cute song. This album kind of suffered for me. I'm not going to tell you where it ranks just yet, but it suffered for me because it started off on a good enough note, and then the middle tracks just dipped for me. And then it ended on a somewhat decent note. The Lucky kind of carried it through the end. Last couple tracks were better than the middle ones. Red, no sentimental value, but it doesn't mean that if you have a good Taylor Swift playlist, you can't have some songs off of here from there. I can't tell if I'm blocking your face with the CD, so
No,
sorry
it's
if I
fine.
did that. All right.
So despite the fact that 2012 was a big year for me personally, this really has about zero emotional impact. I'm, not going to obviously say where it ranks so far, but I think you can tell just based on our discussion. So strong points, of course, I Knew You Were Trouble. It was so funny because obviously as a diehard Swiftie in her earlier years, I was really not, our dogs are upset. I was really not having the whole pop thing. I thought, I hated the synthesizer, I hated all of that. I hated it. And it's so funny because now I think it's one of her best songs of all time and one of her best music videos. Have you ever seen it? So good.
What, I Knew You Were Trouble?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Love it. So
keep going.
great song. Gonna deal with the dogs. All Too Well, obviously, is one of her best songs ever written. I love it because it was never a single, but it still is one of her most popular songs. And I mean, the lyrics are incredible. Just the lyric, "You call me up again just to break me like a promise," deserves a Grammy by itself.
Yeah,
just that piece. So incredible song, obviously great writing, but I agree. I also really like the Lucky one. I think that one's fun, and I genuinely want to know exactly who it's about. There are theories, but I would love to know. But I agree. I think that the biggest problem. Oh, actually, like Everything Has Changed too. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Taylor Swift collaboration fan, but this one was pretty decent. But I agree. Like a lot of these songs were really slow. It was super inconsistent. It felt like she couldn't pick a genre. She couldn't pick a style. And you just kind of get yanked all over the place. It doesn't tell a cohesive story. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot to mention my favorite song on this album. Well, one of my favorite songs, Begin Again, I think was a great return to her country roots. And I think it's a beautiful and simple and sweet song.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, oh my goodness, some of her worst songs, like Sad, Beautiful, Tragic, just drags on for me.
Yeah, that's the one I gave the lowest, except for the last time. Sorry.
Oh, that one too. I hate that one. The Snow Patrol one.
In Holy Ground.
Yeah, that one's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's too much drum. Boom, boom.
Yeah, I gave those three. I gave those three low scores.
And I like even the title track's kind of not that great. Yeah, no. So I don't have a lot to say about those that are positive. Even the singles. 22's iconic for what it is, but it's kind of annoying.
Oh yeah, freaking the hipsters.
I know. Like, I know it defines an age, but
it sounds like she was pandering.
Anyway, not consistent and some bops, but mostly a slow album.
All right. Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, like, good for her experimenting. I think it led her to where she is today.
Yeah. Like I say with a lot of other bands, it's okay if we're not going to explicitly say right here that Red's a bad album, but it's important that artists have certain albums in their history because if they release really great stuff, then one album stumbled so that the next one could freaking fly. All right, her fifth album, which came out in 2014 when we started dating, the one that started it all for us. We actually have a deluxe edition right here.
Literally came out like a month after we started dating. I think Blank Space hit the airwaves like a week after.
Yeah. And, oh, by the way, with the rankings, we're doing standard edition albums. We do the bonus tracks. It would take forever.
1,000 years.
Yeah. No, yeah, this one definitely has sentimental value to me. Oddly enough, my old friend showed me Shake It Off. His room next to mine, he was playing. I'm like, what's that? He's like, oh, it's the new Taylor Swift song. And it was great. But then I got this for Christmas for her, when we started dating. And this just really is the most sentimental album so far because it really defines a large part of the beginning of our relationship. And even though we're kids of the '90s, we have a great appreciation for the '80s too. So for her to switch styles and do this new genre with synthesizer, certain drums with more echoes, and then just this album was just really well executed. And it had a fantastic sense of identity too. My favorite tracks still to this day, this hasn't changed, are Get the Girl. It's the first Taylor Swift song that I gave a 9 out of 10. That means it's excellent. and then I Know Places.
I love that song.
But the singles, except for Bad Blood, even though Bad Blood has a great post-chorus, the actual chorus with the lyrics Bad Blood in it are kind of annoying, but not bad enough to drag the album down by any means. This album has a lot of solid tracks. Blank Space, once again, she does 2 albums in a row with very solid singles. Blank Space is like one of her most popular songs. I've always liked the guitar riff and the style.
I think it's a 10.
Yeah. I gave a couple of songs like a high 7, but they aged well. The album's aged super well. There's not a single weak track on here. Definitely one of my favorites, I'm proud to say. Yeah, Wildest Dreams, Out of the Woods, a lot of good 80s sounds. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I had a lot more to say about this one. What about you?
I mean, I feel like to understand 1989 is to understand, like, not only the sound, but, like, the whole era. I had just moved to Florida. I had just started my internship at Disney World. I just met you. So obviously this was a banging soundtrack to that. I was in a blank space, like, literal mood in my life. So when that song came out, I was like, yes. Anyway, and then it's just tied to really good memories with you and road trips and fun times. So it's all good stuff. I also really love, I think Taylor Swift as her own person is super important, but Taylor Swift as a pop star is this, right? It was the 1989 era. She was a massive pop star. She was winning Grammys. She was wearing 2-piece sequin outfits and going on, her first big pop tour.
Yeah.
And, she was hanging out with her girl squad, and I don't know. So, like, this is peak famous Taylor to me. Some of my favorite songs are, of course, Blank Space, like I mentioned. I think it's the best. All You Had to Do Was Stay is one of my favorites. I think that one's really fun.
We always do the high, head note.
Yes.
Falsetto, that's the word.
There you go.
Falsetto.
Of course, like, the singles are great. I really also like Out of the Woods. I didn't mention that one. And I Know Places. I Know Places ranked really high. But pretty much, I think everything was between a 7 and a 10, because there were some 10s, except for Bad Blood. I do not like Bad Blood. I think the Kendrick Lamar version is far superior, just because I liked his rap.
Bad Blood.
But I wrote in here, the music video is iconic. So, I mean, like, that gave it a few points just because I know what the music video is. But obviously, I have an issue. She's better than the pettiness. She just is. And so it was super petty and it was repetitive and I didn't like it, and that's how I feel about that. But fantastic album.
Definitely. All right. More sentimental. We have her 2017 release Reputation, which, if I remember correctly, it felt like it took forever for this one to come out. When she was
3 years apart.
She was turning out albums like every 2 years, usually, right? My favorite tracks off of here are Don't Blame Me. That's the best one.
So good.
I know it's a little polarizing, but I thought the lead single that came out, Look What You Made Me Do. Admittedly, I liked it more back then. Listening to it today,
I think it's a bop.
I think it's just a few hairs. It doesn't hit me as hard today, but it's still one of the best tracks. Still, there was like a freaking blog that put this song at the bottom. I'm like, ugh, but that's why these are fun. Trying to figure out difference of opinion. And of course, we would agree on this. King of My Heart.
I love that song.
Beautiful song, great chorus.
Mine's Me You.
Great, yes, synthy breakdown at the end with the tribal drums. It's beautiful. Reputation actually aged better in the sense where I don't dislike the first 2 songs as much as I used to. I used to think this album opened on a bad note, but overall, the only song that I thought kind of lagged was So It Goes. Mm-hmm. But the singles are solid, delicate. I thought I didn't like the song Getaway Car. It turns out I really do like it. I like that she didn't, I don't know, it sounds like kind of like a little bit more refined version of 1989 with some of the 80s elements, but then she also brings back and evolves some of her pop elements. So definitely very interesting, and a lot of road trips to this one too.
For sure. And, I know that this album often gets dismissed as inauthentic, but I think it's a really strong album. I love Bad Girl Taylor.
Yeah.
I think that it's deep, it's sexy. Again, the songwriting's all there. And I kind of liked that darker side. And that tour was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
My favorites are... I do also like Look What You Made Me Do. I remember when that came out, I was so excited. And at first I was like, this is super repetitive. But just what it meant for a change in her career, what it meant for just coming out of this really dark time in her life, and kind of having a little bit of edge after being the silent bad girl or the silent good girl for so long. I dug it. I'm like, cool, solid. Also, another one of the best music videos. I think the self-awareness in the very last few seconds is just iconic.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I really love I Did Something Bad. I really love Getaway Car and King of My Heart. But, I look at these and I'm like, oh gosh, I love that song. I love that song. I think it's a fantastic album. I think some of the weaker parts are This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things. Again, you've had better diss tracks, Taylor. Why? If you're gonna do it, that one's kind of, I don't know. It's annoying. I just think it's annoying.
Do you think she did better features, with Ed Sheeran and the game?
I did not like that one.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the weaker tracks as well. And I don't want to ever hear Taylor try and fake rap. It was cute and Shake It Off, but in this it was just weird. But everything else, I think it was really deep, emotional, and it showed strong songwriting lyrically. And as a lyricist, I really dig that, so big fan.
Yeah, and I can confirm the whole failed Caucasian rapping thing. I kind of have an idea of how to look at that, and also more inside check on my ranked Eminem video. But yeah, seeing another fellow whitey rap poorly.
I'm not saying you can't do it, I'm just saying she is not the one.
Yeah. But we are both pasty though.
Me?
No, me and Taylor.
I was like, rude.
No, you're tan. Alright, next up we have her 2019 release, and first and foremost, I like this album a lot just because it has a lot of content on it. It's got 18 tracks, none of them are short. Lover. It's got a beautiful cover. It looks like candy. It looks like cotton candy. There's just something innocent and playful about this album, but there's just so much depth with the instrumentals and all the different things that she continues to experiment with. So I just had this thought. To me, this is a more successful version of Red, because Red did a lot of different genres, but it seems a little disjointed at times. Lover, in my opinion, it did that too. It hit a lot of different genres, but it connected better. It seemed more cohesive. 18 tracks, that means there's a little bit more room for error. If you have a bad song or two, it's not going to drag the album down as much unless you have 14 or 16. Forgot That You Existed's a good diss track and a great opening.
Perfect. She finally did it.
Yep, and then it leads perfectly into one of the best tracks, Cruel Summer. Summer anthem right there. My other favorite tracks are another great single, The Man. Death by a Thousand Cuts, the freaking... it sounds like The Who. Love that track. And then, this is funny. Well, this isn't funny, this is sad, but Soon You'll Get Better. Last time I heard that, it gave me tears. It's a very deep, beautiful... But Me... with Brendan Urie. That's actually the song that gave the highest rating, funny enough. I think that's a really great single. Definitely better than...
I think it's fun.
Yeah, definitely better than... what's it called? The other one?
You Need to
Calm Down.
It's such a summer anthem.
Yeah. And Daylight's a great closing track, too. Sentimental value here, too, and beautiful album.
I have great memories while listening to this. I see, fun summer in the beginning of teaching second grade, which I loved. But it just doesn't have the same sentimental value. I think, my most sentimental are obviously, Fearless, even T-Swift, Speak Now, Reputation, and 1989. But, this one I liked because I loved the return. I love the return to Happy Taylor. I love this aesthetic. She's, in love. It's pink. It's lovely. And I agree. I think this is a lot more cohesive than Red, and so therefore more successful, but I have a hard time. I like being told a story, and I think one of the best things Taylor Swift does as an artist is tell a story. And this felt so disjointed still, even though it was better, that I had a hard time getting into that story. And I just feel like there's a lot of ups and downs. I really love Cruel Summer. I think that's a great song. It really reminds me of like a Reputation era. Love that vibe. Love the man, obviously, as like a strong, powerful woman. And I'm so proud of her. I just spit on you, I'm so sorry. I'm so proud of her for getting, a director VMA for that. Way to go, girl. I love Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. If you're gonna write a political song, that is a fantastic. She does a great job with the allegory there. I think it's fantastic. Cornelia Street, Death by a Thousand Cuts, great ones. Some of her weaker tracks, I Like Me Too. I think that was a good, solid single, and one of her more successful collaborations. I think her and Brennan Urie were great together.
Can't spell awesome without me.
He loves that. I think some of her weaker tracks were, where am I going here? I think He Knows is slow. London Boy, it's supposed to be fun and carefree, but I think it's kind of stupid, honestly. I really do. Oh, Soon You'll Get Better, so fantastic. I forgot to mention that. It was a great return to that country vibe and just heartbreaking and heartfelt. You really like False God. I think it's kind of silly.
It's not one of my favorites anymore. I think it's kind of on the higher good end, but it's not one of my favorites anymore.
Yeah, so those are some of my, they're okay. I mean, they're not awful, but they're not my favorite.
Yeah.
I think It's Nice to Have a Friend was one of my lower rated ones too. There were some songs I'm like, this would have been perfect for the album, and the rest I'm like, did you have to have those? So that's kind of where I'm at with Lover. There are some really strong tracks and some kind of weak ones.
Yeah. All right, last and certainly not least, and definitely a reason I do half the rankings I do, because a new album just came out, 2020 Folklore. Remember how earlier I said this was the best year ever? Well, this definitely actually
it's pretty much the only good thing in the year.
Make it
TBH.
Better. We actually listened to this album together. Like, we actually sat down and stayed still and listened to the album and wrote out our thoughts and feelings. And it was fun. It was nice to actually be focused and listen to music, totally focused, and not just doing it in the background while you're...
Well, and I just think this is not an album that you just passively listen to. It's an experience.
Folklore, I love when an artist releases some of their best, if not their best work, this many albums in. She turned 30 this year, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, last year, but the end of last year.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just something symbolic where, like, that maturity hits, the songwriting matures with it.
You're in quarantine.
And and being in quarantine, one of the very few good things about this year is artists not getting to tour and everything. Now they're staying home and creating more. A lot of artists and a lot of just content producers like me, like, I'm exploding. I got like 6 subscribers in the last 3 months. That's huge because I'm putting out more content. But yeah, this is at a whole other level though compared to my content. Yeah, there's really no songs on this album that disappointed me. Exile, basically every bad feature she ever did has been forgiven.
Oh my gosh!
With this particular one, it's beautiful. It's got a great mood to it, and just the back and forth between her and the feature are fantastic.
So good.
One of my favorite tracks. It reminds me of Torn from Natalie Umbergule.
I can't say it.
The 90s, Torn.
Nothing's but I'm torn.
Yeah, this song August reminds me of it. It's got great progression, like with the lyrics and the phrasing, just the way she sounds with all that, and of course the guitar. Because even though again metalhead, I love good, even clean guitar in a pop song, and the slide. Yeah, August is just a beautiful song with a great ending, great outro. To me, a powerful outro can like really elevate a song much higher.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of good outros. Like, she was outro queen on this one.
Yes, she was. Wait, where did it go? Oh, so there's a song on here called Invisible String, and I just wrote in big letters, more hooks. She's a pop star and she writes a lot of catchy stuff. She's really good at it, but part of the reason why some albums will rank lower is because there's going to be certain songs that just don't hook you. Invisible String has a hook on the end of it, and it hooked me several times. It's one of my favorite tracks. Like,
this is Hook City. That song is Hook City.
Yes. Epiphany is a gorgeous ballad.
They're so beautiful.
And, those are my 4 favorite tracks. Exile, August, Invisible String, Epiphany. Cardigan's a great single. I don't know what the next single is going to be, or it's too early to say, but...
Well, I mean, Betty is right now a single on country radio, and she just did it at the ACM Awards.
Yeah, I think the opening track, The One, is the best rating that I gave to an opening track. So this album started on the best note, and the badass piano that you hear in Hoax, and then Peace is an excellent song as well, in my opinion. Of course...
They've grown on me. Those were my least two favorite.
Yeah.
They've grown on me.
The closing track, Hoax, was also, aside from Lover's Daylight, I really like that one, but Hoax was one of the best closings she's ever done. So, again, a lot of maturity in this album, a lot of brilliance, and just a lot of refined... You think you're going to listen to like a folky hipster album, but it's not. It's... What did we say?
Red walked so Folklore could run.
Yes.
And here's the thing about this, and I'm going to continue from here. This was manipulation by a label and manipulation by the person who was in charge of that label, and you can tell. Like, you can 100% tell. That's why it's garbage. Fun fact, her label didn't even know she was releasing until, like, the day before. She's like, oh, by the way, I'm releasing an album. Yep. Surprise! And honestly, like, sometimes, rarely, label interference can lead to collaboration that strengthens an artist, but I just feel like Taylor Swift is so much better on her own, and this is apparent. You know, like, obviously she had collaborators, but she's so much better without that corporate, I don't know, manipulation. I do not think there's a weak track on here, like I said. Some of the weaker ones were Peace and Hoax for me, but they've completely grown on me. I love the song Mirror Ball, and it's not a lot of people's favorites, but I just, first of all, I love its 90s, like, easy vibe, and I also just really identify with the lyrics. It's somebody who's trying so hard, and, like, knowing Taylor Swift as an artist, this is her soul, right? She is working so hard to keep us all hooked and interested, and the negative things that come with that, right? And as somebody who is a people pleaser, like, Mirrorball hits me in my soul a lot of the times. I really love what she did with the love triangle. I loved the Cardigan August / illicit affairs. I feel like those two are really closely related. Betty love triangle. I think that was brilliant. I think Cardigan has some incredible lyrics, just like you know, You Call Me Up Again Just to Break Me Like a Promise from All Too Well. I think Leaving like a father, running like water is another just Grammy-winning lyric. Like, way to go, you did it. Wow. Yeah, I think it's great. I think Exile is her best collaboration she's had. It's incredible.
Yeah, her higher voice is really complemented by, I forget his name, but his lower...
the band is Bon Iver.
Yeah, I just feel like his voice really complimented her better than, like, Ed Sheeran's a good singer, but he's a little nasally to sing with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think also her vocals. I mean, you've seen it. We all have. Literally since 1989. She's obviously improved, but this is incredible. Like, her high range, her low range, everything. She does artistry with her voice and vocals that we've not heard. I mean, you see it a little bit in Don't Blame Me.
Yeah.
This you really see. And I could just talk about this album forever because I think it's amazing and perfect. But I think the lyrics are just, they tell a story, it's cohesive, it's moving, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's still relatively new, so it's still growing on us, but it left a very powerful impression, and I think with that...
And is it like moody? Yes. But is this year moody? Also, yes. I needed a depressing I Hate Everything album because, like, that's 2020.
Yeah, if everybody else, if there's going to be people in denial out there, we need a very strong counterweight like Taylor Swift to be real with us. But, yeah.
Give me depressing songs that feel like the 90s and I can sing in my car.
Yeah, I forgot to say that. The song you mentioned, Mirrorball, really does sound like the 90s. I wrote that there, too. And then
I also love My Tears Ricochet.
I said that one had a slight 80s ambiance to that. Mm-hmm. So, hey, ready to do the ranking?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
So at the number 8 spot, I'm going to go from, you know what? Yeah, I'll do what I normally do. I'll go from worst to best. Okay.
Worst to best.
Yep. So at the number 8 spot, getting a 7.65 out of 10, which means middle good. We have Fearless. That's my number 8. My number 7 is her 2012 release, Red, which got a 7.75, so only marginally better than Fearless. Number 6, Self-Titled, getting a 7.76, so a hair better than Red also. But yeah, number 5, we have her 2008?
2010.
2010 release, Speak Now, clocking in at a 7.95. So as you can tell, all these were really close so far. But there's tiebreakers. Number 4, we have Lover from 2019, getting an 8.02 out of 10. Number 3, we have Reputation, getting a 8.06. Number 2, the album that started it all, 1989. How We Get the Girl, 8.26. So this one was actually higher by a bit. And then number 1, the one we just did, Folklore, which got an 8.4 out of 10, making it the best by quite a bit. Amazing album to inspire an amazing list by an amazing YouTube content creator. Okay, your ranking.
Okay, sorry, I upset our dog. Okay, starting at the bottom, as you can probably guess, last place was Red. It fell flat for me. It got a 6.5. Now, granted, my rankings are going to be a little higher than yours because I'm a massive T Swift fan, and so I just think even her bad stuff is inspirational and amazing. But this was last place with a 6.5. So that is what, 8. Number 7 was Self-Titled. I mean, it's a great album, but she's put out so much great work since that she's just grown from this. All right, coming in at number, I had a tie for number 6. Lover and Speak Now came in analytically at a 7.6 for both of them. But if I had to tie break, I would say that Lover ranks lower, and then Speak Now, and it's really mostly just for sentimental reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, but sentimental reasons have high weight.
Yeah, it's the X Factor.
So, you go 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that makes me at what number?
3.
Okay, no. At 4. I'm at 4.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. It's late and I can't count. So 4 is Reputation, which was surprising. I really love Reputation, but just individual songs, I guess, like, some of them fell flat and were just overproduced.
Yeah.
So it got a 7.82. Fearless in 1989 actually tied at number 2. So, tied at number 2, 2 of her biggest albums, right, to date. But if I had to tie break, of course, it would be Fearless at number 3, 1989 at number 2, just because I think this is everything that Taylor Swift is in her zenith. But I, of course, love Fearless for its sentimental value. That takes us, so those were both solid 8s. And at 9.8, so obviously so much higher than all of them, because I gave so many perfect 10s. Like, I just love this album. Was, of course, Folklore. It's so different from anything she's done, but I think it's the best thing she's ever done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's...
So we agree on number 1, yay!
Yeah.
Which is funny, because my number 3 is like your last place.
Yeah.
Just rude.
Yeah, I didn't go into way too much detail with why I rank things a certain way, but as you can tell from my top 4, Lover, Reputation, 1989, and Folklore, obviously I'm more of a fan of her back half of her catalog.
He's not a country person.
But yeah, generally I'm not, but I'm glad that I was able to at least put her first album, which is way the most country one, at the number 6 spot. But yeah, obviously too many ups and downs starting out, but then her last 4 have just been solid for me.
Solid.
And you've been listening to her closer, longer, so there's more sentimental value on the front end. So, 8 albums, 2 people, in a certain amount of time.
A long amount of time, but you can't just sum up T Swift shortly.
Yeah, we can. So, whatever you agree with or disagree with, just don't be mean to us, please. Just share.
So when you say I have a right to my own opinion, that doesn't work for politics, but this does work for this. You have a right for this.
Yeah, and
I mean, some politics, we won't get into that, but definitely albums. You have the right to your own.
Share your favorite songs, what you agree with, what you disagreed with. If you have any interesting stories, as to why a certain song might be important. It's always fun to read those. Sweetie, did you have any other thoughts, or do you think we made a pretty fun time going through all of her albums?
It was great.
Yeah. I want to thank you for doing this video with me. I love you.
I love you too.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. And again, I generally do metal rankings, but probably see some interesting stuff like this from time to time.
Especially because I don't think I've ever been a featured guest ever in a video, so this was great.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
And I'll catch you on the next one. Okay, you need to stop. You're beautiful. All right, I love you. You ready? Okay. Ink.